The downfall of YouTubers like Jake Doolittle or Brad Taste in Music, while deserved, carry a hint of sadness, like watching someone trip over their own ego and greed. But when it comes to Onision, there's no room for sympathy. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we'll be examining the satisfying downfall of Onision, a man who's often regarded as the most evil YouTuber ever, and not without a reason. From abusing his partners to the point of giving them PTSD to chasing cupcakes. There's enough dirt on Onision that I can make a feature-length movie and still not have enough time to cover everything. However, where other YouTubers would disappear after receiving this much hate, Onision is still desperately trying to stay relevant. He is doing everything in his power to make a comeback. But as you'll see later, his luck has finally run dry. And to fully understand Onision's horrible actions and eventual downfall, we have to start from the very beginning. Gregory James Daniel, aka Onision, started making videos on the internet before YouTube was even a thing. He had his own website called Mr. Odd, which he used to share his comedy sketches with the world.
My car. VHX.com lets you design a car online. Coupe or sedan? Coupe?
And just a year after YouTube's launch, he jumped over to the new platform and continued making similar sketches for a brand new audience. However, he didn't see much success until September of 2009, when he posted a video simply titled Banana Song.
You're a what? I'm a banana! What happened to your clothes? I'm a banana! I'm a banana! I'm a banana!
This instantly went viral across the internet, amassing 95 million views to date, and becoming a cultural phenomenon at the time, similar to how the Harlem Shake became a trend a few years later. From there, Onision started seeing 1 million+ views on every video he uploaded, which was considered a massive achievement at the time. And in order to fully capitalize on this popularity, he started diversifying his content, going from just skits and songs to including vlogs about himself and his relationships. He also launched multiple other successful channels, resulting in him gaining over 350 million views combined across YouTube. However, as his popularity soared, so did the amount of questionable content he started posting, like making over 20 videos mocking a girl suffering from an extreme eating disorder.
Hi, I'm Eugenia Cooney and I'm doing a cooking show. But first I'm gonna eat something on camera to prove to you guys that I do eat.
And if that wasn't bad enough, he also created a series where he rated the attractiveness of his often underaged fans.
Yeah, this girl's like a 9.4, super attractive.
In these videos, he insulted girls he didn't find attractive.
She's like 7 feet tall, and she has that horse teeth condition. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. It's not pleasant. So, you know, sometimes pictures are misleading.
Even worse, when he showed interest in a girl, his comments crossed a line into deeply inappropriate territory.
Another person who didn't put that much of themselves in the photo, but for their age, they're a pretty solid 9. Let's hope it doesn't all go to waste when they grow up.
And while we can see the sheer creepiness in his content today, many of his fans weren't aware of it back then. Like this one person who wrote, "It's so sad that I never realized how f***ed up these videos were when I was younger." Another person even admitted to submitting their own pictures in the past, which raises the question of why. Why would these girls willingly send pictures of themselves to a weirdo? Well, they didn't see him as creepy. To them, Onision was a popular YouTuber, someone they admired. They were looking for validation, and he exploited that vulnerability for his own gain. That's not to say everyone loved this degrading content. Many viewers actually called him out. However, instead of apologizing or fixing his behavior, Onision almost always doubled down while projecting the idea of him being in the right. For instance, when some of his fans questioned his intentions behind these rating videos, Onision presented himself as nothing more than a brutally honest person, someone who had the guts to say what others were too afraid to say. And sadly, this act worked for the vast majority of his viewers, who idolized his quote honesty, and overlooked the many problematic aspects of his content. But as these fans would find out years later, these videos were never about telling the truth or being honest. Instead, they were a way for Onision to fulfill his sick, perverse desires. And despite the occasional backlash, Onision managed to maintain a relatively positive online presence for the next several years. And it wasn't until 2019 when the first domino fell, signaling the beginning of his downfall. In September 2019, a girl named Sarah came forward accusing Onision of and abusing her for years. Sarah first started watching Onision videos when she was just 12 years old. By 13, she was already interacting with him and his then partner Lainey, who now goes by Kai online.
How old were you when you first started tweeting Onision and Onision's at the time wife, Lainey?
When I started tweeting them, I was 13.
Kai and Onision kept talking to her over the next couple of years, but as time went on, their conversations started becoming more and more inappropriate, with Kai even sending explicit pictures to Sarah.
Were there ever any inappropriate text messages sent from Kai, who again is Onision's partner, to you?
Yeah, we would make like sexual jokes to each other. We would joke about like we would, make jokes about us being together. But he would send me like pictures of like him without the top on.
In one tweet, Kai even commented how he was, quote, her nicely. During this time, Sarah started having trouble at home. Kai and Onision saw this as the golden opportunity and invited her to live with the two of them. And while she was reluctant at first, she eventually agreed. This turned out to be the biggest mistake of Sarah's life. Unfortunately, she had no other choice. What made the situation even more heartbreaking was that after Sarah decided to move in with Onision and Kai, her mother willingly signed away the legal guardianship of her teenage daughter to these two strangers.
Your mom knew that you were going to do this?
Yes.
And that was okay with her?
Yeah, she was like, oh, okay, you're just gonna go live out there. She gave me money every month to pay for whatever I needed. But she signed over power of attorney to Kai, and I lived with them.
Which just goes to show how bad things were for Sarah at home. However, they were about to get much worse. In Sarah's words, the couple treated her, quote, like a toy during her stay. During this time, Onision also started featuring Sarah in his videos. This made some viewers concerned for her safety, leading to them questioning his relationship with her. Sarah addressed these rumors in a video, claiming that Onision hasn't done anything inappropriate to her.
People are saying that we had sexual conversations or were planning on having sexual relations when I was underage, and we never did. I don't know why people are now saying this and bringing up old screenshots that have already been addressed.
But as she later revealed, she didn't make that video by choice. Onision practically forced her to do it.
And I know that in the video that he posted online, I basically was like, oh, nothing is going on, guys. But he wanted me to make that video, and he really pressured me into making it, and I really didn't want to.
He even gave her a script with specific instructions on what to say, all to cover up his actions. And unfortunately, this wasn't even close to the worst thing he did, because not long after her 18th birthday, both Onision and Kai started a physical relationship with her. Now, some might argue that this is technically legal, granted, but was it also highly unethical, immoral, and the textbook definition of also yes. Fortunately for Sarah, the public's reaction to her confession was highly supportive, and one reply captured the general sentiment perfectly. So what I'm gathering from this, they both you, had sex with you 5 months after your 18th birthday, and then continued to use and abuse your trust until they decided they were finished. They are total pieces of shit. To which another person responded with a tweet stating, not to mention lying about everything on the Onision YouTube channel and gaslighting their audience to believe we were crazy for even thinking that grooming could be a possibility. Despite the overwhelming backlash, Onision and Kai tried to deny everything. Kai even made a video dismissing Sarah's claims, even though there's plenty of evidence showing the truth.
Said that something has happened with her, or I did something with her, or I cuddled in bed with her, that none of that has ever happened. Never.
However, Sarah's confession was a wake-up call for everyone who had turned a blind eye to Onision's creepy antics over the year. The floodgates were now open, and despite Onision's efforts to hide his vile actions, there was nothing he could do to stop the wave of accusations coming his way. Over the next few days, a total of 6 victims of Onision came forward with their own stories, each worse than the last. One of the most notable among these victims was a girl named Shiloh, who endured even more torture than Sarah. Shiloh was a Canadian pop star who at one point went double platinum for her song Operator. And just like most other fans, Shiloh learned about Onision after coming across his Banana song video. From there, she binged all of his content and became a mega fan, before contacting him via email. After learning about Shiloh's status as a celebrity, Onision replied to her, and the two started talking on Skype daily for up to 10 hours a day.
For about 8 and 9 months. It was between January and December of 2011. And we ended up talking about pretty much all day, all of the waking hours.
And on December 27th, 2010, Onision drove out to meet Shiloh, who was only 17 at the time, while he was pushing 25. But before they met, Onision did something that left no doubt about his true nature and cemented him as a pure PDF file. He chose to meet her in Pennsylvania because it's lower age of consent.
Before he made his way there, he had explained to me that we could get in a lot of trouble. Because
Into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he explained to me we could get in a lot of trouble and that he had to check the state laws before he came.
Because of your age.
Because he knew we were going to sleep together.
And similar to what he did with Sarah, Onision waited for Shiloh's 18th birthday and moved in with her a month later. And just like before, things went south fast. He isolated Shiloh from her friends and family while becoming extremely neglectful and hostile. This mistreatment was bad enough to cause Shiloh to have a seizure, and instead of calling an ambulance, Onision thought it was a good idea to film her in a disoriented state and post it online with a clickbait title, Shiloh Forgot Me.
Unfortunately, last night when I was editing today's video, an unfortunate event occurred which involved both Shiloh and I.
You said you want to make a rainbow?
Yeah.
Why aren't you looking at the camera?
Make a rainbow.
Do you know what my name is? Shiloh?
Shiloh's condition also spoke volumes on how badly Onision treated her, and one YouTube comment summed it up perfectly. I don't know if this is true or not, but it's interesting that even with years of her memory being wiped for that moment, her brain still immediately perceived Onision as a threat. I've never seen someone automatically assume someone had kidnapped them, unless, of course, Onision acted in such a way that made her think that. Even in that state, she was so traumatized her brain still knew that Onision was a threat. It's heartbreaking. A while later, when Shiloh tried to call her mother after a fight, Onision called the cops on her, claiming that she was threatening to end her life. This led to her getting admitted to a mental facility, which gave her the opportunity to call her mother and go home, finally escaping Onision's evil grip on her life. But even then, Onision did everything in his power to discredit Shiloh and cast himself as the victim. However, statements from one of his previous partners not only confirmed Shiloh's claims, but also revealed that Onision had been this way from the very beginning. This previous partner was his first wife, Sky, who often appeared in his videos and was even part of the viral Banana song.
Sky! What, Greg? I'm a banana! You're a what?
However, behind the scenes, Onision was extremely toxic and abusive, resulting in Sky developing extreme depression and even PTSD. Even after their divorce, Onision refused to pay her alimony and equated having to pay alimony to literal slavery. When his attempts to legally dodge the payments failed, he threatened to begging Sky to stop taking the money. He claimed that Sky didn't deserve any alimony because he built his career on his own, completely ignoring the fact that she was a practicing nurse and he made her quit her job to help with video production. And to top it all off, near the end of their relationship, he was even cheating on Sky with Shiloh. Thankfully, Sarah's confession in 2019 gave Onision's victims the courage to come forward. Finally, he was being held accountable for his years of abusive behavior. Soon after Sarah's allegations came out, the case got the attention of one of the internet's most well-known predator catchers, Chris Hansen. Chris immediately began collecting evidence and interviewing Onision's victims one by one. At one point, Chris even showed up at Onision's house hoping to confront him in person. However, Onision knew that an interview with Chris would be a death sentence. He would tear him apart with the statements and evidence he'd gathered. So instead of taking Chris up on his offer and making an attempt to prove his innocence, Onision did what he always does. He called the cops on Chris, labeling him as an online stalker.
911, what are you recording?
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online and they just showed up to my house.
He tried to frame Chris's visit as harassment, even though all Chris did was knock on the door and request an interview. And while he managed to dodge a clash with Hansen, plenty of well-deserved retribution was still headed his way. That's because once word of his actions reached the mainstream, the social platforms that had fueled his career began to view him as a liability. They didn't want anything to do with Onision. And after he accidentally doxed one of his ex-girlfriends while trying to share old messages, Patreon jumped on the opportunity and banned his account. Not long after, Twitch followed suit, and later in January of 2021, YouTube finally demonetized all of his channels, cutting off his main source of income. He finally got what he deserved, but that raises an important question. Why did it take so long for the internet to turn against him? From his deeply problematic content to his openly weird relationships with minors. The clues hinting towards his darker secrets were right in front of everyone. In a world where massive YouTubers can get cancelled for so much less, how did Onision manage to survive for so long? Well, the answer to that lies in Onision's somewhat unique way of handling criticism. As I briefly mentioned earlier, every time he received some backlash for any reason, he refused to take accountability. In his eyes, everyone who spoke out against him was nothing more than a hater. And to a large portion of his young, impressionable audience, his ability to brush off backlash seemed like a show of strength, something to be admired. But that was only the tip of the iceberg, because Onision was also a master at manipulating his audience. For starters, he would often throw exaggerated, almost cartoonish tantrums that made it difficult to figure out if he was genuinely upset or just mocking his critics.
We're gonna disable his Patreon! Wow! Wow, you would really do that! You would really do that!
On top of that, he also tried to stay ahead of major controversies to portray himself as the victim. For example, he made a video about the dangers of fake screenshots, clearly planning to use that excuse later when evidence surfaced of his behavior.
About the most important thing that is ruining people's lives right now: fake texts. Fake screenshot texts make up 99% of all text. That's a fake fact, and that goes to show you how fake it is.
This all resulted in him having an almost cult-like following, where any backlash against him would get snuffed out by fans before it could even reach him. Like this one fan tweet which reads, "If y'all want to hate me for liking Onision, first of all, I couldn't care less about what your opinion of him is. My opinion is that he's just another human being and he deserves to be treated like one instead of being treated like he's a horrible person." And when none of that worked, Onision turned to using an old trick used by failing YouTubers, copyright striking any video that dared to criticize him.
Well, holy shit, ladies and gentlemen, this was unexpected. We have ourselves a copyright strike. I have the email notification here. Hi, Crasher Talks and More. Due to a copyright takedown notice that we received, we had to take down your video from YouTube. Video title: Patreon ban meltdown featuring Onision vocoded to the original Pokemon theme. Takedown issued by Onision.
The good news is that all of these tactics have since failed completely, leaving Onision with zero support from any direction. Which brings us to the present time, and his desperate attempts to make a comeback. For some context, after getting exposed in 2019, Onision has lost 99.99% of his audience. His videos once cleared 1 million views with ease, but now are barely crawling past 1,000. Ever since November of 2024, he's also filled his YouTube channel with AI-generated slop that ranges from weird to downright disturbing. But perhaps his most pathetic move was trying to stage a comeback on TikTok. He probably thought he could start fresh on a new platform.
Hey, Onision! Hi! Nobody likes you.
Okay.
Hey, Onision! No one likes you! No one likes you!
But what he failed to realize is that even if he could somehow escape his rotten reputation, no one on that platform has any interest in his outdated style of content, with comments under his TikToks reading, "Just put my fries in the bag, bro." And almost 30, isn't he like 45 or something? It's obvious he's trying anything he can think of to make money, all to cover the legal fees from the numerous lawsuits that have piled up against him. But is there any hope for Onision at this point? No, not really. Seeing how his attempted comeback on TikTok has failed already, it will only get worse for him. From what I've seen, even if he manages to avoid jail time, he's likely going to be heading down the same path as EDP445, where people on the internet would track him down to ruin his life no matter where he goes.